Hello and welcome to another edition of Web Talk with me, Elvis Teke. On this edition, we are receiving the Director General of the Cameroon Cocoa and Coffee Board, Michael Doping, after the 3-day event marking the Cocoa Days 2026. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for opportunity you're giving me to say a word or two about our Cocoa Days.
The Cocoa Days have just come to a close here in Yaoundé. We'd like to have a first assessment from you after this 3-day event.
Thank you very much for the question. To put it in context, we have been working in partnership with the European Union to put together tools that will allow Cameroonian actors to comply with the requirements of the European Union regulation on education. We worked together for about 2 years. We developed a couple of tools, carried a lot of studies. We have some reference documents which we decided that in the format of event, baptized the Cocoa Days, we will showcase to Cameroon and to the world at large what Cameroon is doing so far, what Cameroon has done so far, to be ready to comply with the requirements of the European Union regulation on free cocoa come December 2020.
In your capacity as Director General of the Cameroon National Cocoa and Coffee Board and coordinator of the Cocoa Days 2026, how do you situate the cocoa market in Cameroon?
Cocoa, as you all know, is food ingredient, but unfortunately, it is traded as a commodity. Prices are determined by the commodity exchange, which makes it peculiar, you know, and so the prices that are used are a derivative of the international prices, and we all have been witnessing the extreme volatility in cocoa prices since 2024. 2024, 2025, we look internally, prices ranging from 5,000 to 6,000 francs per kilogram. Then from December 2025, suddenly, without any objective explanation, the prices dropped below 1,000 francs. Since then, they've picked up again. Today, we're trading at around 2,000 francs, in some cocoa basins. So, are we happy? Are the farmers happy? I don't know. Before the boom, 2005 was not a bad price. But after the boom, such a drop, there's been a lot of frustration and a lot of disappointment by farmers and other actors who did invest a lot of resources counting on these high prices. But like I said, we're in a commodity market, and sometimes we have these booms and busts which cannot be explained.
Do you have some statistics regarding maybe metric tons produced annually, the amount of people, the number of people employed in this sector, and how does it impact the GTB?
From the statistics published by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, we have about 600,000 direct farmers involved in the cocoa production. But every household has 2 to 3 members. And the figures we use for our calculations is a household of 5 people, or 5.2. So when you multiply that by 600,000, we're talking about 3 million people in general who are involved in the paradox is that we have 600,000 farmers exploiting 600,000 hectares of cocoa and producing 300,000 tons. Now, if you do the calculations, it means that the yields are low. It means that we're producing 300,000 metric tons on 600,000 hectares. It gives us a yield of about 500 kilograms a hectare, which means the yields are not the best. Cocoa as well is the first agricultural product and represents about 5% of our GDP. And when the prices were higher in 2005, cocoa accounted for more than 200,000 billion CFA francs in our foreign exchange earnings. So it's a very, very strategic and important sector in our economy. And the other thing I want to say is that when you have this amount of money circulating in the rural areas in the hands of farmers, with the multiplier effect, cocoa actually is the vector through which money circulates in the rural area. So it's extremely strategic.
There was a time when local farmers destroyed their coffee farms because it was not yielding the expected returns. And with the fluctuations of cocoa prices, do we fear that kind of a scenario? Especially given from your statistics that the yield per hectare is less.
You will agree with me that coffee is grown in a different part of our country, and cocoa is grown in another part. When the crisis hit the coffee sector some years ago, in the 60s, the price was so low that the farmers just decided to try something else. And when they tried alternative employment and found that they could make a living out of that, very few of them came back to coffee. But it was a mistake because coffee is it can be a mixed crop. Mixed cropping. You can do coffee and at the same time grow other things on a coffee farm. And so when the prices are low, you don't destroy your orchard. You keep the trees. And when the prices pick up, then you can still make money from coffee. So when it came to cocoa, my first fear was that farmers could turn away and maybe start cutting cocoa trees. But the fortunate thing is that in this part of our country, in the south and the eastern region, cocoa has values beyond the monetary aspect. It's a cultural crop. Your status is determined in the village by the acreage you are cultivating. Secondly, cocoa is a perennial crop and is used like a land title. Once you enter a forest and you see cocoa, then you know somebody planted it, and you know therefore that the land belongs to somebody. Yes, will the farmers cut off the trees? I don't think so.
Yeah, beyond the cultural values, you discuss on profitable and fair cocoa as one of the themes that were highlighted during the cocoa days here. Did we discuss about how this profitable and fair cocoa could lead to better development, especially in the rural areas?
One of the studies that we were presenting yesterday was a study carried out of what we call living income, decent living income for the farmer. And this study had very many parts. The first part was the agronomics, how to do cocoa properly.
Mhm.
Another part was on the cost of production. If the farmers do it right,
Mhm.
the yields would increase from 500,000 tons,
Mhm.
kilos, 500,000 kilos, to
Kilograms.
maybe a ton per hectare.
Mhm.
Now, if a farmer does that and then does mixed cropping
Mhm.
to generate on the same piece of land his
Mhm.
food and other income from other activities, non-farm activities,
Mhm.
he could generate enough income to break even and still take care of himself. We also came out with a threshold that an average family of 5.2 people farm should be at least 5 hectares.
Hectares. If you are just joining us now, you are watching Web Talk on CRTV Web with me, Elvis Teke, and our guest is the Director General of the Cameroon Cocoa and Coffee Board, Michael Ndoping, who is talking to us at the close of the Cocoa Days in Cameroon. So tell us, sir, Cameroon is amongst the leading cocoa producing countries, yet cocoa farmers seem to be poor, unable to acquire basic ovens to dry their cocoa. Is there an explanation to this paradox?
Most people do cocoa farming as, like I said, as a cultural thing.
Mhm.
We have tried to move them away from cocoa as a way of life, cocoa farming as a business. It has been extremely difficult. If you go back historically, you will find out that cocoa was a colonial crop,
Mhm.
and the farmers who were first involved did it more or less on instructions from somebody.
Mhm.
They didn't go into it as a business.
Mhm.
After independence, the various governments have had various programs to assist the farmers with input, with training, with you name it. But somehow one still has the impression that they don't consider it a business. Those who do it as a business make money.
Okay. Besides the cocoa seed, what else can the farmers do to benefit from the cocoa plant?
There was a study carried out by the International Cocoa Organization some years back. The first thing the study demonstrated was that the cocoa shell, the beans inside, represent only about a third of the whole pod. The rest is juice. The rest can be converted to potassium. In the study also showed that you could convert the juice into brandy.
Okay.
Unfortunately, most people, once they break the pod and take out the beans, they just dump the pod
The
shell
shells.
of the farm, and it becomes a source of disease.
Cocoa is one of the major exports for Cameroon, with 98% destined to European markets.
Are there any ventures by the Cocoa and Coffee Board to foster local transformation and industrialization of the cocoa sector so that more of this cocoa is transformed and the transformed cocoa could be exported?
I will send you back to the Agric show in 2011. Where the head of state said, we produce what we don't consume, and we consume what we don't produce. And in that statement, he indicated that we also export beans without any value addition. And he admonished us of the sector to encourage local transformation. So we produce 300,000 metric tons. 109 is transformed locally. We have 12 industrial plants transforming cocoa locally now and adding value at source. So the call by the head of state in 2011 today is reality. And we have other people knocking at the door, wanting to transform more at origin than importing the beans and transforming abroad.
At the time when the Africa Free Trade Area is advocating for transformation, so what prospects for Cameroon and Africa as a whole, particularly in this sector?
That's an interesting question, because initially cocoa was grown for export, and at the time the legal instruments in force were meant for export by sea. So you couldn't trade cocoa in Africa, it was mainly by road. So one of the things we did 2 years ago was to put in place a legal instrument that allows us to export cocoa by land. If today the industry, the local industry in Nigeria decided to source from Cameroon, we might not even have to ship to Europe. Secondly, with the advent of the African Free Trade Zone, with the various tax breaks that are included in that regime, trading among us is going to be the road tomorrow. The minister said it today, his concluding remarks, that Africa alone in the next 20 years is going to be 2 billion people. The population in Europe and America is stagnant. So the market tomorrow is Africa. We have the potential, we have the legal instruments in place. If we do it right, we will not have to export our beans beyond Africa. So we are of the opinion that the future is transforming locally and selling within Africa.
Many young people have abandoned the farms and they are engaged in other activities. What do you tell young people?
The cocoa sector is still very attractive. The potential is still there. The opportunities are there. Government has programs in place to assist. But at the end of the day, it's still a personal decision to be made by whoever.
Thank you very much, Michael Dopping, Director General of the
National Cocoa and Coffee Board, for being our guest on this edition of Web Talk. It's my pleasure. And that was the package we put together today. The cocoa sector is still very vibrant. The young people are invited to invest in this sector, which needs some energy, determination, and hard work. Thanks for being there. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to our channel. Like, share, and subscribe.